Welcome fans of the GBA, I hope you all have a sodium deficiency because it's time for the saltiest show on the GBA channel, Big Deal or No Big Deal, where we dissect moments of hacks throughout the week and determine if they have a large effect on the match or if they were no big deal.
For the purposes of this series, hacks will be defined as an event that has a 30% or lower chance of happening. 30% isn't a general nice number, letting crucial scold burns in while excluding a hypnosis miss. Disclaimer before we start, when we go over the effects hacks has on a match, we will be assuming that each coach will make the exact same plays as when the hacks happened. We're doing this because effects of things such as tilt are very hard to predict, and overall this just removes severe theory crafting from the show. However, without further ado, let us begin.
For our first match, we'll be looking at the battle between the New Orleans Pelvis and the Melbourne Rotoms. The hacks of the match begins with John's Tornadus confusing Aaron's Kingdra with Hurricane. That came into play immediately the following turn when Kingdra hit itself square in the jaw as John switched into Serena. Later in the match, Serena was used to revenge KO Swampert, taking a nice punch with gusto and eventually succumbing to Bloom Doom from Kartana. The Kingdra was eventually KO'd by Tornadus later in the match with a combination of knockoff and grass knot.
The calcs relevant to this battle are of course the Kingdra's Surf versus Serena, as well as Swampert's Ice Punch against the very same one, and later on, of course, Knockoff and Grass Knot, both coming from Tornadus into Kingdra. So there are a few things to talk about in this match, the foremost being how Serena would have been able to survive against if it had taken a Surf from the Kingdra.
Yeah, and the calcs that we've done, Kingdra took, how much did it take? Kingdra took 86 HP from the Ice Punch from Swampert after taking a Volt Switch from Heliolisk, a Choice Specs Rain boosted Surf from Kingdra, which is what happened. The Serena with the Assault Vest would have only taken 48 to 57 HP, and that after the Ice Punch it was left with 70 odd HP.
The Serena would have been able to survive both the Surf and the Ice Punch. And of course, the only other thing that the Serena actually took aside from the Volt Switch was the Bloom Doom from the Katana, and as it was able to survive the Bloom Doom, as it was killed by the Bloom Doom, of course having less HP would not have changed a single thing. But the next thing to discuss is Kingdra. Kingdra, before hitting itself in confusion, had 72 HP. And yep, so the calcs for... So would Tornadus have been able to kill him with both the Knockoff and the Grass Knot?
Very much so. Very much so.
Yes.
The Grass Knot, how much did we figure out the Grass Knot did?
The Grass Knot would have done 47 to 56 HP, and the Knockoff did 34 to 41. And again, Kingdra was at 72, so even the absolute min rolls for both of them still would have killed Kingdra. So this match can be deductively said as a no big deal. Our second match we're reviewing belongs to the Borussia Dortmund and the San Jose Sharpedos. After Jan Mega took Scissor to the underworld, Tom brought in his Landorus in an attempt to revenge KO the Jan Mega. The Jan Mega in question went for a Supersonic Sky Strike, which Landorus was able to live, and he went for a Stone Edge. However, as bugs are pretty hard to hit when throwing rocks at them, he was unable to do so. Landorus was then KO'd by the Giga Drain, and then Jan Mega and Crocodile were able to KO the Rotom Wash, finishing off the Sharpedos team.
Yeah, so the biggest point here is that if Lando had taken out Jan Mega, would have the Crocodile been able to KO the Landorus in turn, and then would have it been able to deal with the Rotom as well. And from the looks of it, with Cobalion, it really wouldn't have been able to do damage to Rotom. However, the Crocodile was Choice Scarfed as well, and since Crocodile's base 92 speed, while Landorus is base 91 speed, it was able to outspeed Scarf Landorus by however many points, and Knockoff would have been able to take out the Landorus from that range of HP, and how would it have done against the Rotom?
Yep, and there is very little that Tom could have done to prevent this, as the knockoff is, two knockoffs are able to kill the Rotom Wash, meaning that Moxie would bring the Crocodile up to +1, and then Intimidate would bring it back down to neutral. And as knockoff kills Landorus Theory in neutral anyway, it means even if he stayed in he would die to, the Landorus would die to a knockoff, and then the Rotom Wash would die to a +1 knockoff. However, if he switched, the Rotom would have died to 2 knockoffs, and then the Landorus would have died to 1 knockoff.
So the overall consensus on this one is it was no big deal. Third match of the week, we have the Columbus Chew versus the Milwaukee Bears. Now, turn 1 of the match, Wolf was really feeling himself and decided to keep Tangrowth in on Sneasel. Fortunately for Wolf, Sneasel went for an Icicle Crash, and Tangrowth was able to move slightly to the left of the falling icicles and hit back with a Leaf Storm, taking Sneasel down to its Focus Sash in the process, whilst Tangrowth remained at a crisp 100% health.
Of course, the relevant calcs to mention here would definitely be the Icicle Crash from the Sneasel. Now, we don't have exact sets for either side, so we have to make a lot of guesstimates in this, but for the purposes of this calc, we are saying it is a max HP Tangrowth and a Adamant max attack Sneasel. So the Icicle Crash would have done 108 to 128 HP to the Tangrowth, and it should be mentioned that Regenerated heals exactly 69 HP every switch that the Tangrowth has, which it did twice during the match. Once, of course, against the Sneasel when he switched into the Jellicent, and once more later on in the match. Now, later on, the Porygon 2 was in and used Ice Beam against the Tangrowth, which does 52 to 62 HP. It used it 3 times during the match because of paralysis and other forms of hacks that we decided not to mention this time. One last piece of information that we decided to bring up this time is a Manaphy Ice Beam against the Tangrowth. Now, I know earlier on we said that we will be acting as though each player would play the match in exactly the same way. However, this time, as the Tangrowth could be in a range of Ice Beam, depending on calcs, we decided we may as well include it as well. The Ice Beam from Manaphy to a max special attack Assault Vest Tangrowth does 62 to 74 HP.
Yep, and we're guessing that had the Icicle Crash connected with Tangrowth, that the Manaphy would have stayed in and gone for the Ice Beam rather than switching out and not bothering. So now that that's out of the way, let's just kind of determine exactly what would happen. So given that Tangrowth switched out without taking any damage twice, that means that Tangrowth would have recovered 69 HP all up after the Icicle Crash. And given that the Icicle Crash would do 108 to 128 and the Regenerator would recover 138 HP, then it really wouldn't have affected the Tangrowth's health once it started taking damage against the Porygon 2. Now, had Columbus Chew decided to keep Manaphy in and keep going and go for an Ice Beam, that would have only done 62 to 74 damage to Tangrowth, which would have been well out of range of with the 128 HP minus 69, whatever that is. We calc this at some point, but that is very much out of range of an Ice Beam from Manaphy.
As the people in the comments would crucify us if we didn't mention it, the paralysis on the Tangrowth did not matter at all, as the Tangrowth was still able to get off a knockoff and the Xurkitree was still able to kill the Porygon 2 regardless.
And so to close out our matches of the week, we have the Tampa Bay Luxrays versus the Bronx Bearticks. Now, all Mono had to do to win this game was to connect an Icy Wind onto Gyarados so that way it could not set up, and so Mono would be able to outspeed the Gyarados with his Rotom and proceed to win the game from there. However, that didn't go according to plan because Gyarados managed to dodge the Icy Wind, proceed to set up a Dragon Dance behind a substitute, and win the game from there. So, for the first time in GBA history, we have our first moment crowned a big deal.
So, ending off this video, we are going to do Luckiest Player of the Week, and possibly Luckiest Player of the whole season, because who doesn't love seeing crazy percentages, right? So I guess we'll start from number 3, just because the other numbers are a bit more normal. So at number 3 we have the Borussia Donphan, whose combined hacks has a percentage chance of 0.3%. That is with the Mega Houndoom miss at being 15%, the special defense drop on the Rotom Wash being 10%, and the Stone Edge miss being a 20%. on to you for number 2.
Coming in at a hot number 2, we have Chimpact with the Philadelphia Scissors with a percentage of 0.1739%. Now, this is off of 2 critical hits on Toxapex in a row, can you believe it?
Coming in at number 1, utterly destroying the competition, is Chase with the Detroit Steel Wings, sitting at a nice 0.000217% chance. That is combining a Scald Burn onto Crobat with a Scald Burn onto Crobat, a critical hit onto Flygon, critical hit onto Heatran, critical hit onto Heatran again, and a special defense drop onto Heatran. So this number is quite a fair bit lower than every other number we have. And that means that at the end of week 1, the Detroit Steel Wings are the luckiest coach.
The luckiest coach of the week was the only coach to have gotten 6-0 for the week. How's that for Pokemon being a game of luck? And so that's going to conclude us for this week of Big Deal or No Big Deal. How do you guys think we went? Let us know in the comments down below, because this is a new show and feedback is very much appreciated. Also, if you think there were any other moments of hacks that didn't get the coverage that you thought it deserved, once again let us know. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys go. My name is Arahpthos, and he has also been Jack. He's not here while I'm recording this outro, so yeah, from both of us, have a good one.